Have a problem bricking? Do you draw all your garnets or not enough hand traps? Don't see your sided cards enough? Well then, this is the video for you. I'm going to teach you how to stop bricking in Yu-Gi-Oh! Forever. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright guys, so to calculate the probability of drawing a specific card, kind of to stop bricking, we're going to use something called a hypergeometric calculator. Now how this works is that it's a calculator that it finds a chance of drawing a specific card in a specific sample without replacing the card. So for example, you draw a card of 5, you draw your hand size of 5 cards, and let's say we play 3 ash blossoms. So it's going to calculate the chance of drawing 1 ash, or how many ashes you want in a hand of 5 cards, assuming you don't replace the card. So that's kind of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played anyway. So without further ado, I'm just going to teach you how this works and why it works. I'm going to show you another method as well, if you kind of want a more trial and error method without kind of doing the maths. I prefer to do the maths, and I actually do both, to be honest, in most of my decks. I'll just play normally and do some testing, and if I find I break a bit too much, I'll just go into this and kind of just see where the problem is. So for example, let's see the chances of drawing Ash Blossom and Joy Spring in any given deck, just because it's very generic. So we're going to put population size, and that's just the size of your deck, so that's going to be 40 cards on average. Obviously, you might be playing more cards than this, but 40 cards is the general amount you play. Now, the number of successes is the number of cards you're looking for. So, for example, Ash Blossom, Joy Spring, you're looking for 3 individual copies of the card. So each of those cards are the same card. So we're going to put 3. Now, the sample size, this is how many cards you're drawing. So obviously, going first is going to be 5 cards. Going second is going to be 6, and so on. And now, number of successes. Now, this is how many copies of the card you want to draw. So for Ash Blossom Joy Spring, I only want 1 in my hand. Obviously, it's a hard once per turn. So we're just going to put 1 here. And now we can just ignore all of this stuff. It's not that important for us right now. We don't really use this in Yu-Gi-Oh! The last row is what's more important to us, the cumulative probability. Now, this is just the combined probability of drawing the Ash. We're just going to calculate it now. So as you can see, we have a 0.33. So if you multiply it by 100, it's going to be 33.75, so 34% chance of drawing an Ash Blossom in any given deck. Now, obviously, the smaller population size, the more consistent, and the higher amount of the copies of card you're going to run, the more consistent as well. This is why, obviously, most decks play 40 to 41 cards, because if you do run 41 cards, I believe the maths is virtually the same, so I guess it's okay to go to 41. And then I think once you start hitting 42, 43, the probability drops a lot more than that. So the question is now, how do you stop bricking? Well, when you build your deck and you notice that you're not seeing enough of a specific card, you put it into this calculator, and then you're kind of going to see the probability of how much you're going to draw. But we're not going to use this for a specific card, as if you do have an important card, you're just going to play 3 of it anyway, and probably 3 ways to search it. Like, for example, Soul Leaning Overraptor, you're going to play 3 copies of Soul, you're going to play 3 copies of Fossil Dig, that's your 6 copies, and obviously the chance of drawing, one Soul Leaning Overraptor, or one way to get to it, is going to be quite high, it's nearly 60%. So there's no way to improve the consistency in that. But if you're going to talk about playing an engine, or you're going to talk about playing a hand trap specifically, hand traps in general, it's going to be a lot easier to use this to gauge that. So let's say, for example, in Salamangreats Greats, I play around insane amount. I play around 12 to 15 hand traps. I'm just going to say 12 hand traps. So we're going to have 12 hand traps, and what's the chance of drawing at least 2 hand traps? Considering that you can't draw any less than that right now because of the meta. So I'm going to calculate that, and I have a nearly 50% chance of drawing 2 hand traps in any given hand, and the chance of drawing 1 hand trap is 85%. So I have a guaranteed hand trap most of the time. So it's just a very good way to kind of gauge it, but I'm just going to get into another way if you don't really like this method, or if you want to kind of have more testing with it. So I'll just get back into that, and I will see you in a bit. Alright guys, so this is the second way of how to test how consistent your deck is. Now this is kind of more of a practical approach, and you can combine this with the hypergeometric calculator to kind of get a better view of how to go about it. But this is the second way I like to test how consistent my decks are. So I'm just going to go with my basic Salamangreats Great deck. So as you can see, we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hand traps in the main deck. Obviously for some people that's just insane, but for me, I think it's kind of needed in the meta right now. This can easily be bumped up by 2 more if I cut the will, but I'm going to kind of teach you how to go about testing how consistent your deck is by actually testing your deck rather than just kind of doing numbers if you're more into that. So we're just going to go on EDO Pro, you can go on Dueling Book, you can go on any platform, even just get your deck in real life, and you're just going to click Test Hand. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to look at your hand, you're not going to play anything because obviously it's going to take way too long to test. There's 2 ways of going about this. One is you're going to take the top 5 cards of your deck, test how good the hand is, put it aside, and keep doing that. But the issue I have with that is that your cards don't leave your deck once you're done using them. Like, you're going to use your first 5 cards, and then next game they're going to be back in your deck. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at my hand and see what do I have. Is the hand good enough or is it not? Well, I have a Lady Debug, which is obviously a free way to get Gazelle. And I've got the Roar already, so I'm just going to send a Rage. I'll have Parallaxy to get Baguska or any rank 4. And I have my 1 hand trap. So this is a really, really good hand. So what you're going to do is you're going to have kind of 2 die, or you're going to have like a notepad. And you're going to have 2 columns, 1 good and 1 bad. So for every good hand, you're just going to kind of write a mark under it. And you're going to do this 10 times. You can do this as many times. Obviously, the more times, the better an idea you're going to have. But you're just going to kind of make a mental tally or just write down the tally of how good or how bad the hand is. So obviously this is a good hand, so I'm going to say it's a good hand. I'm just going to do this 5 times because the video is going to get way too long. Now with this hand, it's not as good, but I have my 1 hand trap, I have my Spinny, which gets me my Balinks, Parallaxy to extend into rank 4, and I've got Desires to potentially get something nice. So let me just rip the Desires anyway. Obviously it's not going to affect anything. Obviously I'm not going to chain Ash to my own Desires. And I got another Desires, but I got my Rage. Now this obviously is a very good hand as well, so that's 2. So 2 good and 0 bad. And I'm going to test 3 more times. I've got 2 hand traps, I've got my Mining to get my my Gazelle, I can just pitch my Rage with that, and then reset it with Sunlight Wolf. And I got my Debug to get me a Spinny or get me whatever I want really. If one gets Ash, the other one works. Now this is a really good hand as well, so that's 3 successes and 0 fails. Now I'm going to do it 1 more time. Now, this is less of a good hand. However, I do have my Mining to pitch my Nibiru or pitch my Foxy to search my Gazelle. And if I just normal summon Foxy, I can use this effect to kind of see what I can dig for. I got myself the Will, which is obviously, it's a good extender to have. And if I play this hand out, I know I can get very, very good with this hand. Obviously, it's kind of subjective of what the Foxy drew me. But if I obviously pitch the Gazelle, I can get myself my... pitch Nibiru, I can get myself to Gazelle. Now this is a very good hand as well, so I'm going to put that as another success. And I'm going to test it just 1 or 2 more times. This is going to be second last time. And I got my Gazelle, I've got my Debug, the Falco. So I've got a very nice hand. If I just rip the Desires, just to see what I get. Obviously it's a very good hand because I drew the Gazelle, and this is not nice to see, but the Silent Mining can pitch the Falco, can pitch the Debug. And Debug will probably give you another play for the next turn if you decide to use the first one. This is a very good hand as well. Now just for the final test, we're just going to do 1 more time. And obviously this is just an insane hand again. We've got our Debug. If it gets Ash, we already have the Gazelle and the Will. So this is just going to extend into a lot of advantage in a very good field in general. So we did 5 tests, I think, and each of those hands produced very, very good results. And this is not edited, this is not cut out. I've done all the maths of my deck, I've done the numbers, I've done play testing, I've done testing in the, privately, and my deck is as consistent as I think it can get. This is why I'm not changing anything for the time being. If anything changes, it's going to be the hand traps. So this is essentially how you're going to go about it. You're just going to keep testing and you're just going to see how your deck performs. You can even test it in games, I guess, to see the consistency of it, but the best way is to test it individually. So you can kind of see the problems for yourself, like, oh, I'm not drawing enough hand traps, I'm not drawing enough engine pieces. You need to get kind of a nice number around it. And I think combining these 2 techniques together kind of gives you a feeling about the numbers. So do the numbers work? And it gives you a playtest feeling, like does it work in practice? Because obviously numbers can say anything, but it's going to be your experience that matters. So this has been Cyber Eclipse. Please subscribe. And this has been Meta Monday. Stay tuned for some hopefully better content than this. I'm going to get better equipment and mic, and hopefully it should be better than the quality I have right now. So without further ado, I'm out. Have a great day.